What is a user interface again? A survey of definitions of user interface. Hi, my name is Leonel Morales. I have an interest in studying user interfaces and trying to build a theory of user interfaces, and I'm going to present this paper. What is a user interface again? A survey of definitions of user interface. If you search for the concept of user interface online on a search engine, the most popular definition that you're going to find is this one. User interfaces are the access points where users interact with designs. I know this because I have been doing this. I have been searching for user interface definitions online for a while, for a few years now. Well, this is the most common, the most prevalent definition of user interface that you will find, and it has some problems. If you see, it relies on the idea of access points. And if you're wondering what is a user interface, maybe because you are new to user interface design, or maybe because you are new to building user interfaces, then what you're seeking is guidance and references. And what this definition provides is the idea of access point. What is an access point? What are the available access points? What access points can I use with this technology or with these users? If you are an engineer trying to build that user interface designed by a designer, then you're going to wonder, why did this designer include this access point and not this other one? Maybe that designer didn't knew about this particular access points. So this definition is not good enough. We need better ones. And if you see, in computer science, we have theories of the human, of the user. We have anthropological theories. We have physiological, biological theories. We have sociological theories, anthropological theories, philosophical theories. We know a good deal of information about the user. And we also know a lot of information about the computer. We have theories of the storage, of memory, of architecture, of construction of computers, microprocessors, and all the like. We know a lot about users and computers, but we don't know much about user interfaces, which is the element that sits in the middle between the user and the computer. And we need to advance a theory of user interfaces. And for that, the first element that we need is a good definition of user interface. So I started searching for what can be called a canonical definition of user interfaces. We have in computer science canonical definitions for databases, for algorithms, for programs, for programming languages, but we don't have a good definition of what a user interface is. So I started collecting all these definitions, and I started putting them in a database. And after a while, I started noticing that there are some categories of user interface definitions between those that I collected. And the idea I got was from this diagram that I use for teaching human-computer interaction in my classes. I explained that the user interface is that element that sits between the computer on the right and the user on the left. And what I wanted to illustrate with this diagram is that we have to match the output capabilities of the computer with the input sensory capabilities of the human. And we also have to match the motor capabilities of the human with the input getting capacities of the computer. On the left side, we have the human mind with cognition, volition, and on the right side, we have the computer with processing and memory and storage, and we have to match them. And if we see the diagram, we see that the user interface is the element that has to accomplish that match between the user and the computer. And if we look to only this tiny region of contact between the user and the computer, we're not going to advance much that coupling of capacities. So what I found is that the definitions online can be categorized in two main categories. Thin definitions are the ones that concentrate on describing what is happening here in this narrow region of contact between the user and the computer. And thick definitions are a little bit broader, wider, I mean. They try to comprise, they try to describe the human capabilities that have to be matched with the computer capabilities. In describing those capabilities, what the thick definitions do is they try to guide the designer and the engineer in building the right thing to couple those capacities. So I ended up with 6 categories of definitions, basically thick and thin definitions, but also among thick definitions, we have thick computer and thick user. Thick computer are definitions that lean towards the computer. They try to describe the capabilities of the computer, and thick user are the definitions that try to describe the user. And also, among thin definitions, we have thin ad hoc, which are definitions that are specific for a particular application or use case, and that's why they are ad hoc, because they are not intended to be generalizable. In thin visual definitions are the ones that concentrate. They are very common, by the way. They try to concentrate on describing what's on the screen, on the visual elements of a user interface, screens, pointers, icons, texts, things that can be seen. But as we know, nowadays we don't have user interfaces exclusively for the visual channel of sensory input. We have voice activated, gesture activated. We also have brain-computer interaction, and they don't necessarily rely on the visual channel for interaction. Also, I found several interesting cases like this one. On the 90s and 80s, the idea of look and feel of a program, of a system, of a software was very popular to describe or to try to convey the idea of user interface. But in a case for property rights, for intellectual property rights, a court dismissed the idea of look and feel, disregarded the idea of look and feel, because it was not significantly enough. It was not significantly helpful to determine copyright in a case. So the idea of look and feel was very popular in the 90s and 80s, but it doesn't help much for the case. In summary, this table can be found in the paper. I found that 78% of all the different definitions, unique definitions, I mean, are thin definitions that comprises 108 definitions, and only 22% in that's 31 cases are thick definitions. And you see that they are very difficult to find. Thick definitions are difficult to find. They are buried in papers and articles and in books, and well, they are not as available as common as thin definitions. Okay, this is a working definition of user interface. This is one that I propose in the paper. A user interface is an artifact, meaning that it has to be designed and built with a purpose that connects a computational device and a human user, enabling the effective coupling of the motor, sensitive, perceptive, cognitive, and volitional faculties of the human with the input, storage, processing, and output capacities of the device for the set of tasks that are related to a particular set of objects. So this definition conveys the idea that you have to consider the capabilities of the user and the possibilities of the device and try to couple them through the user interface, and that's what you have to design. So this is a more guiding definition. And for my conclusions, if you search for user interface definitions, you're going to find most likely thin definitions that concentrate on the narrow region of contact between the user and the computer. And team definitions have problems because they don't guide you in the task of trying to match the capabilities of the human with the capacities of the computer. And for a user interface theory, we need better definitions. We need to start with a good working definition, and I provide one in the paper. Finally, I want to end with this particular case of the last definition I found online. This is from Leonard Nake. A user interface is like a good joke. If you have to explain it, it's not that good anymore. I think this is a, a nice idea, but after a while, I found this other tweet by Mark Reginsky, where he says, well, there's a popular user experience quote, a user interface is like a joke. If you have to explain it, it's not that good. Well, what Mark says is that that statement is far from the truth. And after in successive tweets, he explains that that's because of culture. The same as jokes. Jokes sit in a culture. If you can tell a joke, it's because you rely on the culture of the person to understand the joke. That's the same for user interfaces. Well, after a while, after searching, I found out that Martin LeBlanc was the originator of the idea of this definition. In 2014, he tweeted, a user interface is like a joke. If you have to explain it, it's not that good. Well, and then the tweet became so popular that in 2021, I mean, he offered it for sale, and he offered this tweet for sale. And guess what? After a while, he was able to sold it in $555. So he sold that user interface definition. So if you have a good user interface definition, you may end up selling it on the internet. Thank you so much.